on shrimp testing. That's a pretty easy thing to work on. My name is Dave Williams. I'm with a company called Seek Consulting. We have a rapid genetic test that can authenticate whether or not a restaurant or a retailer is serving local, domestic, wild-caught shrimp or imported shrimp. We do that very, very simply by using a test called the species. We have a very resilient test, and because it's resilient, we can use it in almost any environment. An example is we have cooked shrimp in tomato ketchup for 40 minutes and still got a positive ID on that. Okay? So, next slide please. Background. I'm as old as the hills and I support the shrimping industry and commercial fishing in the United States and the world. Commercial fishing is a vital part of any coastal community. What we're doing with the testing is providing transparency, and we sort of are bypassing a lot of people. Thank God for the media here. It's incredibly important that the media gets the story out, and you guys have been doing an absolutely wonderful job, except one of you guys, but I'm not going to mention it.
Oh, you already talked about me, David.
Okay. What we do is, in this particular market, we've been hired by the Louisiana Shrimp Task Force to actually go out and test restaurants. The way we do this is pretty simple. What we do is we get a list of restaurants, maybe from the health department. That's about all they're good for, I think. And we take that list and we use search engines such as Captain or Seafood to reduce the level of restaurants down to approximately 60 to 100. And then from that 60 to 100, we use a random number generator to basically select the restaurants. When we do that, that basically means that we have no bias when we select restaurants. When we go into a restaurant, we look for a number of different things. First of all, we usually take a picture of the outside of the restaurant, take a picture of all the inside paraphernalia, take a picture of the menu, find out whether or not they're mentioning terms like local, Gulf, wild caught on their description. We take notes of all that, and then believe it or not, we actually ask somebody who is with the restaurant whether or not the shrimp is local or imported shrimp. We use various different terminologies. We can use a phrase like, I'm from out of town. I really want to eat some local shrimp. Is this shrimp local? And if we get a positive reaction to that, to me that's pretty despicable if they're not serving local shrimp. We also take prices and various other different things. Now, if you actually look at the situation with regard to American wild-caught dishes and correctly labeled imported shrimp dishes, American wild-caught shrimp, this is out of 24, so it's a pretty good sign. You look at New Orleans 21, you look at Slidell 21, that means only 3 restaurants were not labeling their shrimp correctly, which is a very good thing. As you go away from New Orleans, which is, I guess, the center of authenticity, as you go along I-10, the authenticity rate averages around about 70%. And then as you go further away from the coast, the authenticity level drops to around 50-60%. So you can see that. Now, cross-market percentages, basically, mislabeled imported shrimp, these are the bad guys, basically, even though I'm not supposed to say that about restaurants. Mislabeled imported shrimp basically says that they're selling imported shrimp and telling you that it's wild-caught shrimp. Correctly labeled imported shrimp, they actually have the label incorrect. Now, unfortunately, in Louisiana, all they have to do is put up a sign saying, seafood may or may not be imported, please contact the server. And to me, that's a bit of an ambiguous way of marketing product. And then you have nearly 65% of all the restaurants are serving wild-caught American shrimp. You guys in Louisiana have the highest authenticity levels in all of the states that produce shrimp. So you should be very proud of yourselves and give yourself a round of applause. I was being sarcastic about that. You can do a lot frigging better, okay? You haven't even got to pass your year grade, okay? When it gets to 75-80%, I'll approve. So anyway, let's look at these particular markets. This is like a quiz, okay? Where is compliance label? Where is the compliance rate of labeling import highest? Obviously, you would sort of assume Baton Rouge, because Baton Rouge is the center of all legal issues and shit like that. But actually, it isn't. Believe it or not, it's home in Louisiana. Yeah, where do you come from? Oh, this one. Yeah, she's not authentic, just throw her away. Okay, smiley face. And then, where is the compliance rate of labeling imports weakest? I think you can most probably guess that because of the authenticity going further north. Where? Shreveport, yeah, you're correct. So basically, you're actually getting a three-dimensional look at what the market's doing in the state of Louisiana. Now, I think as you go away from the coast, your culture and your connection with the shrimp industry goes away a little bit. And also, I think there's some issues with compliance once you get further away, because they're more concerned about other things apart from shrimp. So, Shreveport 58%, New Orleans 13%. We'd love everywhere to be 13%. If every single state had a 13% inauthenticity level, our problems with the shrimp industry would be solved. It's very, very important to continuously update and monitor and hold people accountable. Our goal is not to do this all by ourselves. We would like the health department and the Department of Ag to actually take up what we're doing and actually do enforcement associated with it. Unfortunately, in Louisiana, enforcement at restaurant level is, I think, what's the right term, abysmal, okay? So let's go on to the 8 states, okay? So what we did is we have sampled every single market that produces shrimp, from North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, all those states we've done, and we've done, in this circumstance, we're doing 44 restaurants in a particular market, okay? That gives you an idea of what your authenticity levels are. Now, believe it or not, places that have legislation actually have higher authenticity levels, and places that have no legislation have terrible authenticity levels. So, let's have a look at this. First of all, if you take the cumulative situation, 217 restaurants served inauthentic dishes. 111 restaurants served authentic dishes. And 4 restaurants actually correctly identified imported seafood. So you look at that, the vast majority of the stuff that is going on amongst all the states is inauthentic. Now, one of the interesting things is, okay, that's all right, go back. One of the extremely interesting things is that 4 correctly labeled imported shrimp dishes. That's very, very important because we've got a lot of information about imported shrimp dishes in the state of Louisiana. And what we found is that if you actually describe an imported shrimp dish properly, and you say imported, you can't sell it for as much money as if you don't do that. So every single dish that is served that has imported written on it sells for an average of $4 less per plate than dishes that are either authentic or dishes where they say it's authentic but it's not. So not only do you get a cheaper product, but you make more money at the back end of it, which is despicable, and it really does hurt restaurants that are being authentic, like this place. Okay? Now, here we go. This is the Rogues Gallery. Active labeling rules 58% authenticity. States with pending legislation 51% authenticity. The Wild Frigging West, which includes Florida, has a 15% authenticity rate. And that is Florida, that is Georgia, that's a couple of other states. So you're actually looking at a situation where you have almost no chance of actually eating an authentic shrimp dish in those places. Now, the actual effect has been really, really significant. If we can actually reduce the authenticity rate by 50%, the inauthenticity rate by 50%, it would make between a $300 to $700 million difference in our industry. Now that's a straight calculation, it's nothing that you make up, which, before we started doing this data, there was no information on this. So, who gets hurt? Consumers, particularly, unfortunately, tourists. How many people go to Louisiana, go to Florida, go to Mississippi, go down to the coast, and the first thing they say is they want to eat good, fresh seafood? Our golden rule is, the more you assume that you're going to eat fresh, local seafood, the less likely you are. A good example is one state where there was a large shrimp dock, and there was restaurants all the way around it. And one of the restaurants was actually naming drinks and dishes after the shrimp boats that you could see from their restaurant. And they were serving imported shrimp. Now, that's a punch in the head. So, just so you know, I'm not saying the restaurants are to blame because it could be anywhere along the supply chain, but things need to improve, and they are. So anyway, we're going to go on to media coverage, which is Miss Glenda. She's a genius when it comes to that. If we hadn't had media coverage and we wanted to press people, this story wouldn't have got out, and we wouldn't have had the effect that we've had. And these people will tell you the price of shrimp in the last year has gone up about 30%. And a lot of that has got to do with what we do, because we have screamed and shouted from rooftops because of you guys to legislators and people saying, hey, this is BS. So anyway, on you go. Ms. Glenda.
Yep. I can do it. Do it all by myself. This has got to come down. Hey, so I'm not really a genius. It's pretty interesting stuff. I mean, this is like when people find out that they're being deceived, they don't like that. So and we've had some great relationships with media partners that I'm going to highlight for you to give you an idea of what's been happening. So one thing that I thought you might be interested in is I'm more of an advertising person. I just happen to be doing media relations for Speak, but the whole advertising model of trying to get a consumer to do something, which is what we're doing, is trying to get consumers to do something, right? To demand legislation. It's awareness, interest, desire, and action. That's the marketing side. First you gotta create the awareness, then you gotta get them interested in buying, then make them want it, and then action. So, and we are definitely making that happen. So appreciative of all the people in this room, as well as some others who couldn't be here that have helped us to tell the story all the way across Louisiana. We even had nationwide a lot of coverage, and I want to show you a few of those stories. We even had reporters go out and become undercover themselves, send us the reports blind so that they could test and tell the story from their angle. Inside Edition busted Bubba Gumps. If you haven't seen that clip, it's on our website under news coverage. And I mean, they literally went into 3 different restaurants in the New York area and in New Orleans, and got them to lie to them, which is what Dave and Aaron and the testing team have been listening to for a year now. Is like people just bold-faced telling them that they're serving them something that they are not. But there's a lot of good things out there too. I will say, that another partnership that happened was with Louisiana Illuminator and Fox 8. They went out to what's it called?
West Wego.
West
He's
Wego.
not from here. Neither am I.
They went to West Wego and found that most of them were serving, or all of them, I think, were serving the sugar that they were trying at that time when they were testing. So that was a good story. And Nolan at the Center Square has told so many great stories for us that, he's actually winning an award. And then, the New York Times, when Brett covered this story during Jazz Fest, as well as a bigger comprehensive story, the timing could not have been better, because in Texas we were trying to get legislation passed. I sent that article to every legislator on every committee that ever thought about it, and it wasn't just me, there were so many people helping to get the word out. And I think that was pretty convincing to those legislators that they need to act, and we got mislabeling laws passed in Texas. So the media coverage for the past year has been like 1,500 stories about this, and that's a lot of impressions. And if somebody had to pay for that, it'd be like $2 million worth of coverage. We don't have $2 million in ad budget, so if it weren't for the media telling consumers what's going on, we wouldn't be able to make the effect that we have had, which has also been, so that's the awareness piece. Now the interest is all of the engagement. The online engagement from all of this has been through the roof. And then we're actually getting consumer and purchaser demand for U.S. wild caught enforcement. Dave can tell you a little bit more about that when we're done here. But the people at the South Alabama foodies, for example, they have 25,000 followers. We're like, who's testing at the National Shrimp Festival? Who's going to make sure that they're serving what they said they were serving? So the demand is starting to happen, and that is what we want. Now the action of laws and enforcement, we're still working on that, and that's got to happen. We're excited that laws have been passed in Texas and Mississippi and Alabama. What's happening is happening, but there's like North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida that needs some love, and at the federal level, it's really difficult, obviously, right now, to talk about anything, much less shrimp. But we're not giving up, and we have the pedal to the metal. So, you guys have any questions for Dave or I? We appreciate your time, and I will say that it was interesting when I first started doing this. I had one of my colleagues say, Glenda, nobody gives a damn about shrimp. And I was like, well, they will when I'm done. So, it's like you just got to keep telling the story. And we had, Dave was just at the National Shrimp Festival with his team, hired by the organized Alabama Association, Seafood Association. And they were testing there at Gulf Shores at festivals. They were starting at festivals as well as restaurants, and they caught people not selling at the National Shrimp Festival selling imports, and they fined them and they made them stop selling until they bought from the local vendors and could prove through another round of testing that they were actually serving what they were supposed to be serving. So it's hard to believe that you have to do that, right? So You have any questions for Dave?
But
Or me?
I question
Yes.
I think since this has started, is it over a year yet? Very fine,
We have been testing for a little over a year.
it's not that long, really.
We've been,
I mean, I think that this has gained so much attention to what's actually happening to our industry. Like you said, these millions of impressions are every other turn. And I'm just so appreciative of that. I really think more attention has been gained in this last year or something because of this than a lot of our state and national organizations. They've done some great things. To get the people's eyes open to what's going on right here. Because most people don't
know.
think a lot of people can, but they really care about getting light or everything. So
Well, I was self and I didn't know anything about it. I mean, it was like, what? And when I'd be talking to reporters in certain markets, and they were like, you want us to do what? Of course they're serving Gulf shrimp. Of course they're serving Gulf shrimp. I'm like, wow. They
I
really
think
know
even a lot of places you find something that tell you what you want to hear.
well,
Some of them don't know. You actually see the box, blah, 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 whatever. You know, I just throw it off.
to me, the most amazing thing is I stood here about a year ago, and everybody was sort of doubtful that we could make any difference. And I said that famous word, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And we've eaten one back leg, and we're going up towards the butt of the second leg. We've got the rest of the elephant to go, because the rest of the elephant is other seafood. And that's absolutely essential. Because what you have to do is you have to have a thriving coastal community, and it can't just be based on crabs or shrimp. It has to be based on everything that comes in, because if you know anything about an environmental situation, if you start taking selected bits of the environment out, it hurts everything. It has to be more of a holistic solution, even though I hate that because foodies and naturalists and environmentalists use it. But holistic is really what needs to happen. And also, this is just a start, because we need to bring new life into our industry. We need to improve infrastructure, and we need to bring Louisiana and the rest of the Gulf states kicking and screaming into the 21st century. It's incredibly important that we do that. That has to be done by research, which we talked about tomorrow, and it has to be done by people fucking thinking, okay? Because a lot of people don't think, and it's really important that thought is given to our industry. Like I said, I don't want the Disneyfication of our industry. And when people start selling shrimp off the back of the boat or giving an overnight shrimp fucking visit, okay? It's not right, because we should be proud of the industry we have. And if we're proud of the industry we have, it can grow and it can become many times greater than what it was previously. So I'm a little bit of an evangelist. Actually, quite often, this is a very mild speech for me. Quite often I do Southern preacher, and I apologize for that because it's a mission. Okay. So, any other questions? Yes, sir. The man with the attractive hat.
David, Glenda, through your efforts, do you know whether or not any restaurants have either started serving an authentic Gulf shrimp or changed their menus to clearly indicate that their shrimp is imported?
Yeah, actually we have seen that in a lot of places, and one of the things that happens, which members here will know, is every time we go into a market, the people who are distributors in that market get inundated with requests for how much domestic shrimp is and where they can get it from. And a few of them do change over, but just unfortunately the ones that do change over, there's also some that go and change back. Like we were in Gulf Shores. We just finished market testing in Gulf Shores. And 2 restaurants converted to wild caught American shrimp. And you go, yay! But then 2 of them that were serving wild caught American shrimp are now serving imports. So, you know, it's a battle, and the way I look at it is people deserve to know what's on their plates. We need, for every single possible reason you could ever imagine, we need our commercial industry. We have to have it, because if you don't have that, then you're going to end up with just an awful caricature of what Louisiana culture is on the Gulf Coast. Oh, by the way, Tampa was the world record. Out of 44 restaurants tested, only 2 were actually serving wild caught American shrimp, and all the other ones were serving imports. And you know, guess what? Lots of people come down to Tampa simply to be a tourist, and they get the shaft.
How many of the Tampa was saying that it was local?
A lot. It was basically what happens is there's 2 levels of authenticity, okay? The first one is when you ask and they say, yes, it's wild caught shrimp, or they have it on the menu. The second thing is what's called the net impression ruling by the Federal Trade Commission. And that if a restaurant actually, through its imagery, location, branding, implies that it's serving wild caught seafood, it should be doing that. And that sounds so obvious. You know, it's like if you have a vegan restaurant and you have vegan, you know, you have no cows or anything all over the place, like grass and shit, whatever you guys eat, and then you serve beef burgers, it's the same thing. It's authenticity. And you know, the good thing about authenticity, when you go to a restaurant that's authentic, the staff is happy, they enjoy themselves. They don't have to laugh. I was at a retest in Gulf Shores, and I went into a restaurant and I said to the lady behind the bar, I said, is this shrimp local, authentic shrimp? And she said, no, believe it or not, they're from Peru, but I've been told to lie and tell you they're wild caught. Now, I'm sure she was on her last legs, about to be 5, but you know, that's the, how can I put it? I'm not going to be rude to restaurants because you guys can be rude on your writing.
But to answer his question, you retested in Tampa, like, it went from 96% to 86%.
Yeah, it went from 96% to 86%. So we made it down. We made it down, but you know, in reality, must try harder, Florida, please. You know, it's like, you know, they would be in most probably remedial schooling with regard to authenticity. And you guys from Louisiana, even though you're not the best state in a lot of ways in authenticity, you're fantastic. By the way, if I insult people, it's because I like
It makes
you
my
guys.
job so
Yeah. Apparently tomorrow I have to have a duct tape on my mouth. So any other questions? Yes, okay.
How do you best see this technical information and data translating to consumers? Like, do you see it as some sort of like certification that restaurants can put on their menu? Like, what's the best way to get this
Well,
information out?
unfortunately, every single certification program I've seen in seafood has not worked in the slightest. What happens is they'll use that branding, that logo, and then they'll just serve whatever they want, okay? So unless there's actually teeth to a situation like that, you know, if people were to say, hey, we're going to set up a program about Gulf shrimp, if they actually hired somebody like us to actually double check, then people will be authentic. If you're going to give away free advertising, people will take advantage of it and continue about their merry way, unfortunately. Yes, ma'am.
So there are already federal laws in the books about fraudulent
Right.
Is that correct or?
You know,
It's not
basically.
enforced, but there
No,
are laws, right?
you know, there's fraud rules, okay? So, you know, you shouldn't, you know, it's the same thing about rolling a odometer back on the car. You shouldn't do it. But, you know, same type of stuff. But we've, like I said, we've thoroughly enjoyed our relationships with the media. Hopefully you can go out and bust a few more balls and get the story out, as I know you can. And I really appreciate you guys listening to us. I really like the trumpet in the background. It makes it so fun. Thank you. I will be here tomorrow.
Thank you all again.